Again, that was Marvin Totonecci, who was playing the flute, entertaining us. And the Smith family was escorted in by several friends, and I'd just like to mention their names so that you know who they were, if I can find them. Guess I can't. Anyway, this evening what we're going to do, of course, is celebrate one of the great guys in the mineral business and mineral collecting. Louder? Let me get this thing over here where people can hear me maybe. I've known Bill for 30 years, 35, 40 years, something like that, ever since he started hobnobbing around mineral shows, and so did I. And what I liked about Bill was his sort of his honesty and his straightforwardness. You know, when you knew Bill, you knew exactly where he was coming from. He didn't have any great stories to tell you. He just said it like it is. So what I'd like to do this evening is open the program with Brenda Jones, who is going to give us a prayer. She is from the Tohono O'odham Reservation north of here. Brenda?
Good evening, and I am honored to do this blessing this evening. And you have to excuse me if maybe I get a little emotional. Basically, because it is even a greater honor when I look at the year that William was born, because he was just a couple months older than I am. And so I'm truly blessed and honored to be here this evening to share with you. My name is Brenda Alejandro Jones. My O'odham name is Bishamonim Tanakakachu, which means quiet desert quail. I am a member of the O'odham Nation. I live in near Cells, which is west from here. And I live there with my husband. I have 4 children. And I'm honored to have one of my children with me and some of my grandchildren to be here with me.
Right.
So I'm thankful and I'm blessed, and like I mentioned, even more blessed to be given this opportunity to do the blessing for this occasion. And I'm going to do a song, an honor song for William, and then I'll do a prayer. So. To give him that honor for his life. And so it's a warrior song, and it talks about the warrior running and meeting the coming of the sun in the morning as he runs up the mountain. So I like to share that with you this evening.
Let me get you a hand mic.
Actually, I'm good.
You're good? I don't think I can figure out how to turn it on. Maybe not. There we go. Try that.
So I'll sing that song again, like I mentioned. Gonya seya nai gonya kena mamarhem. Gonya seya nai gonya kena mamarhem. Kamu kawana kana wang wapa dangi maranangi tam. Kesetana nama siarana nama kewemya meriwa. Gonya siyanai wonya kena mamarem. Gonya siyanai wonya kena mamarem. Kamu kawana kana wang wapa Jangi Muranangi Tam Kesetana Nama Siarana Nama Kewemya Meriwa. Gonya Siyanai Wonya Inama Marhim. Kamu kawana kana wang wapa Jangi Muranangi Tam Kesetana nama siarana nama kewemya meriwa. Gonya siyanai wonya kena mama hema. Kamu kawanagana wangawapa Janghi Murinangitang Kusatana Namasi Aranana Mukakawamya Muriwa.
Oh, beautiful.
Sanatakam Api Mapanhaichuk Tatam Josh. Creator, you that is above all, God, we thank you and are honored, and we humble before you this evening, thankful for life. So we look to the east, and we thank you for life that you give us. And we look to the north, to where you give us what we are, who we are. We look to the south, where you give us the wisdom, the traditions that we have. And then finally, to the west, where as our brother has gone, where life ends, but yet we have so much to be thankful for. And as we look at the sunset and we see all the colors, we know that you are with us. And so, Creator, we thank you for all that you give us, for all these people. Bless them and help them throughout these days. So we pray all of this in Creator's name. Amen.
Thank you, Brenda. Wonderful. We have a lot of people who came here from Houston who I would like to introduce. Some of them are going to share some of Bill's exciting adventures with you. You know, when you work with Bill, and incidentally, Bridget Khanna is here. And Bridget, Bridget, right? No? Where? Oh, there you are, over there. They moved you. Bridget was his immediate boss at Chevron. And when you get a chance later, during refreshments maybe, go talk to Brenda and see Bridget, see what she has to say about Bill. I imagine his unique personality and his sense of humor came through loud and clear during work hours. And you'll see that in a couple of pictures, but she's probably got more to tell you about him than I have. Thank you for being here. I would like to introduce, it's hell to get old, you have to wear glasses. I would like to introduce Dr. Patrick Lyons, who is the director of the museum and who made this possible. He was assisted by, Miss Lizarago, who is the director of activities here, and she helped Jay immensely in organizing this evening. So both of them have much to contribute for us. And Dr. Lyon, I'd like to have you come up and welcome this crowd.
Thank you very much. I have the honor of welcoming all of you here tonight to not quite the Arizona State Museum because we're across the parking lot, but you'll be joining us hopefully after we tell our stories this evening, tell some more stories across the parking lot at ASM. Tonight, it's really an honor for me to be speaking about William T. Lawrence. It's an honor that I had early in November at the opening of ASM's Curtis Reframed exhibit. And on that night, that was just barely 1 month after Bill's tragic passing, we were celebrating an exciting exhibition that was made possible in large part by the enthusiasm and generosity of Bill and Jay and Jean and Eldon. And tonight it is again a privilege to honor the memory of Bill Lawrence. Bill, as you probably know, was a great appreciator of history and American Indian cultures, and it turns out he became a fervent supporter of all things ASM. Bill and Jay came into our lives, and Jean and Eldon also, a little over a year ago. We were immediate and fast friends. Bill and Jay were welcome participants at all museum events and programs as guests, volunteers, and supporters. And several times in just that 1 year, they introduced us to potential donors, pointed us in the direction of financial support for projects, and became involved in many, many, many ways. They were even gracious enough to accept us into their home, and what a great time we had at their home. This past summer, Jay actually became a member of the steering committee for the ASM Friends of Collections, which is a terrific organization, and I understand that she's now one of the new co-chairs of that august body. Thank you for that as well. Jay has also become an integral member of my pottery research team, and thank you for that. As all of you know, Bill left us on the 9th of October near Benson while he was hunting for minerals. It's said that is the only thing that he loved almost as much as he loved Jay. And there it is, the thing that I really wanted to say about Bill. The rest of this stuff is true, of course, but how I feel, what I wanted you to know tonight is that his love for Jay was true, pure, and palpable. He delighted in her. I could see it in his eyes. And I truly believe that there is no greater measure of a man. I felt this every time I was in his presence with her. Bill loved his minerals, he loved his wife, and he loved his family. He enjoyed Texas whiskey and was a master of the barbecue grill. Bill enjoyed a good celebration, and so tonight, I know he is here with us. Jay, Jean, and Eldon, we salute you and we salute Bill. We remember him, we honor him, and we thank him and we thank you for being such good friends. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lyons. Excuse me. Bill worked in Houston, of course, so you know that there'll be some folks here from Houston to share with you. I also would like to share with you some of the comments that were made in emails that Jay received. She was kind enough to share those with me. So what I want to do is read you just a few of those comments, because there are threads of Bill's life that go through all of these, and I'll point those out as we go along. Bart and Terry Birdsall wrote, we will miss your smile, your various styles of facial hair, so fun and unique. They were. Your sense of wonder and lust for life. That's true of Bill. He just loved life. You were never one to bring us down, but lifted us up with your passion. Liz Ann Haynes wrote, we really loved Bill for just being himself. His honesty and enthusiasm were courageous and contagious, and something I really admired was all he accomplished and taught us. That's another thread that ran through his life. He taught people. He would share his knowledge. Wonderful thing for a person to do. Pam and Phil Parker, who were neighbors, had something different to say about Bill. What happened was they live in a homeowners association, and someone turned Bill in for parking the Rocksmith vans in their driveway. And they said, they're running a business out of that house. Well, they weren't really. But anyway, Bill got the idea that Pam and Phil Parker were the people who turned him in. And it wasn't true. So Phil wrote, it took some time and patience to change Bill's mind so that we weren't the people who turned him in. But that's how good relationships are forged. Bill's a prime example of don't judge a book. True. His appearance suggested he'd fit right in with movies about gold prospectors and the Duck Dynasty program. But after a few minutes, you realize Bill was, no, catch these, Bill was authentic, sincere, funny, honest, personable, and intelligent. That's Bill. Excuse me. Shirley Crabtree wrote, I remember your outrageous smile and the way your eyes echoed that smile. His eyes sparkled every time he grinned. No question about it. I was amazed by your endless knowledge of the mineral world and your eagerness to share that knowledge. There's that teaching thread again. God must have needed a curator for all the jewels in heaven to have taken you so soon. I'd like to introduce from Houston Dr. Bill, excuse me, Allman. He was is senior consultant and fellow at Chevron Technology. His career spans 34 years in the industry, and he was head of research management, applied technology, and exploration. Bill?
You can tell that I'm quite a contrast from Bill. I don't own a single loud shirt, and I certainly don't own a set of Paisley workout pants.
We'll see those later.
And Bill was unique, had immense passions, and dove headlong into everything. The phase where he became made a real serious bodybuilder, and when he decided he wanted to race cars. And for years, he's been on the safety committees in a company that has a safety-obsessed culture. And if ever I wanted a safety observation, because we have to make monthly safety observations of people to either doing things wrong or doing things right. Because I could always go to Bill, we'd go to lunch and I'd watch him drive, and he had such great situational awareness about what was going on around him, which I think was, characteristic of his entire life.
Smith Driving School, man.
What?
Smith Driving School, I still got it.
Yeah. And I met him probably 25 years ago on my second day at work, and I had that same sort of, really? That's corporate America? But he went out of his way to be a friend, and he had such an eclectic group of friends and was so loyal to them, even some who were sort of a pain to deal with sometimes. In fact, I have several other friends in the company that Bill finally said, don't you really ought to talk to them? They can be trusted. Because that was a big thing with him. He didn't like people who were lazy. He didn't like people who didn't do what they said they'd do. And we ran a bunch of field trips for many years, and sort of thing. I'm sort of a high concept kind of guy. We're going to go to Wyoming. There'll be 20 of us, and we're going to go then. Here's where we're going to go. He said, fine. And a week later, here'd be a plan with logistics and hotel rooms and everything else all laid out, and then we'd go do it. It was fabulous. All I had to do was have an idea, and Bill made it happen. And he also was probably the best scanning electron microscope operator I've ever seen. It merged many of his passions. First, just following through on things. But secondly, he was a great photographer, which a lot of people didn't really know. And he had a beautiful eye for the composition of an image. And then because he knew every mineral in the world, I think on a first name basis, probably, he knew what was important in the field of view of the rock, and that's the picture you got. It was the sort of thing, he knew, he'd worked with Bill and I so long, he knew exactly what we wanted. I had to say, Bill, here's the rocks, go take care of them. And you get back just fabulous stuff. In fact, Jay had to drag him out of the building at 4 o'clock on his last day because he was finishing up some work. And one last thing, he had, again, for people who aren't really quite reliable perhaps sometimes, a very pointed sense of humor. We were in the field 15 years ago with the first graduate student that our group had funded. And she was digging samples out of the hillside, and there was a place that there was about 20 feet of it that was covered. And we kept telling her, you got to dig up the grass, you got to find out what's under it, you got to sample it. And she said, I don't really want to. So he comes up and says, hey, Bill, loud, in a voice loud enough that Kim would hear it. Hey, I'll go in town and get a shovel. We'll come back tonight and sample this, and we'll ask her about it later. I'm going to miss him awfully. And I think that's about enough to say. Bill?
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, he was a treat, I'll tell you. Also from Houston is Dr. Almond,
Not Dawson.
I'm sorry, Dawson, I'm sorry.
It happens all the time.
You
Nobody
guys
can tell
don't
us
even look
apart.
alike.
Yeah.
Bill Dawson was a research geologist and also worked for Chevron. And he's got a few kind things to say about our friend Bill, too.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Really do. I worked with Bill starting the very first day. Is this on? Yep. The very first day he joined Texaco in the mid-'80s and worked with him just about every day until he retired in 2012. He was originally hired to make our thin sections, which he did very well. And we'll come back to that a bit later. As Bob mentioned, there's some common threads or themes that run through this, and making thin sections is part of that. But we realized very quickly that he had a lot more expertise and a lot more insight that went well beyond making thin sections. So very quickly he became the manager of the core lab at Texaco Research, and he was in charge of all sample processing, sample receiving, and sample preparation for all of our projects worldwide. And as part of that, he became known throughout the company, both domestically and internationally, as our major contact or point contact for sample shipping. And if a shipment was caught in customs, he knew how to get it out every time. So he did that for many years. And along with that, as Bill Allman mentioned, he also became involved in a lot of other activities such as safety. And he was a big part of the group that established and maintained safety standards at Texaco Research for many, many years. And what I appreciated most was he made sure that the safety committee followed their own rules, which they often didn't do. He held them accountable. So that's another common thread. Back to making thin sections, I mentioned earlier, he made exceptional thin sections. I've been looking at thin sections for more than 40 years as a geologist, and no one made thin sections better than Bill. And that was so because he's such an artist. As Bill Allman mentioned, he had a really fine eye. And that applied to many things he did, including making thin sections. And he made all of our thin sections for, 15 years or more at Texaco. And he's also responsible for training every person who's currently making thin sections in Houston. He trained every one of them.
Amazing.
Yeah. So that part of his legacy lives on. Now his artistic insights that he had for making thin sections carried over, a lot of other things as well. As Bill Allman mentioned, he was just a marvelous photographer. And I always look forward to seeing the photos that he brought back from the many trips that he and Jay took, along with the sand samples and sometimes the occasional fluorite specimen they would bring me. But his insight into photography and his photographic expertise was used by us year after year after year on field trips. He was a mainstay on Texaco field trips and later on Chevron field trips for the logistics that Bill Allman mentioned, but also he was our primary photographer. And when we were getting ready for his retirement party, I was asked to put together a set of photos showing Bill doing field work, and that was difficult because typically he was behind the camera. He wasn't in a lot of photos. We did find a half dozen or so, but for the most part, he was behind the camera. So we didn't have a lot of action photos of him. As Bill mentioned, we did a lot of field work together in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Texas, Arkansas, and there's one field trip to Arkansas that stands out in my mind. We drove up to a quarry, and the gate was unlocked, but we didn't see anyone around, so we went ahead and drove into the quarry. And there's a small building there off to the side and a truck parked next to it. So Bill Lawrence said he'd go over and talk to him. So Bill Allman and I were unloading our equipment, and Bill came back rather quickly, kind of had a worried look on his face. And he said, yeah, we have permission to stay and we could sample. But he looked around and he said, we need to get out of here quickly. And the reason was, over in that small building, there were 3 gentlemen smoking cigarettes and drinking beer while sitting on cases of dynamite. It happened. So that was one of many interesting experiences we had in the field. Bill Allman already mentioned this, but later in his career he became our SEM specialist. And once again, his artistic abilities and along with his insight in the minerals, carried through on that. And he just spectacular images that he used to produce for us. During the 30 years I've been at Texaco and now Chevron, I haven't found any individual that's more trustworthy or more dedicated than Bill. I worked with him every day. He was there, and I always looked forward to working with him, and I always enjoyed working with him. He was important to me, and he was very important to my family. When I told our now adult sons about Bill's accident, they both said that they had very wonderful memories of Bill, particularly at the Clear Lake Minerals Show in Houston, sitting on the floor and going through flats of minerals and having him tell them about the minerals. And I think that's one of the best ways to remember Bill, and that's the memory that I'm going to hold on to above all else. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Obviously, Bill and his teaching came through again. I'm going to show you a few photographs of Bill's life. We'll have some fun with them, maybe. Bill was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he made sure everybody knew that. But in 1960, he was moved to Houston, where he spent his working life. I'm going to put my glasses on, I'm sorry. Let's see if we can make this machine work now. Oh, yeah, there we go. I kind of summarized a few of his characteristics in this. He was a great rock hound, as you know, and you heard how talented he was as a technician doing thin sections and things like that. We haven't talked about how good a cook he was. Let me share just one comment that was made by Eldon, as a matter of fact. You know, when Jay and Bill started dating, of course, and this is true of many of us, you have to go meet the parents and, you know, pass inspection and this kind of thing. I can actually remember having to go to my future father-in-law and asking him for my future wife's hand in marriage. Now, that doesn't happen anymore, but I think with Bill and Jay, it did. Anyway, Bill flew in from Houston to Arizona, and they got together at poolside, and Bill cooked a marvelous dinner. So Eldon, in his inimitable way, said, "I can see I will get well fed out of this relationship." Anyway, Bill was born in Tulsa, and he moved to Houston and joined the Mineral Society there at the age of 10. So he was a young collector. Yeah, I made the comment he traded in his bat for a rock hammer, but I'm not even sure that's true. He went to college. Try again. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. His dad was the coach of a football team, so Bill was on the team. Can you imagine trying to tackle somebody with a grin on his face like that? You know, he would probably smile his way all the way to the end zone. Anyway, he went to college in LSU and in Texas A&M and majored in geology. And they went on field trips, of course, a great many field trips. And his professor one day on a field trip made a mistake. He said something that was incorrect. So Bill said, corrected him. A little while later, the professor took Bill aside and said, son, you ought to quit this program. You'll never make it in geology. Little did he know. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know how that got in there. Uh-oh. Now we got a problem. You know how to run this thing? This is where we were. There we are.
Is that where you want it?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this is probably taken one of the at one of those get-togethers when Bill was doing the cooking and Eldon was doing the admiring of it. Let's see if that. Bill's career, of course, was spent in Houston, and he started out with a company called Superior Oil. And he was hired there by a headhunter to do thin sections. And his work was so good, as you've already heard, that Robertson Research in England went after him and hired him. And he worked for them right on through until they closed down in 1995. He rose to be manager of their research lab and in charge of all scanning electron microscopes and thin section work. So he really showed his talents. When the place closed down in 1995, Jay?
85.
85. Oh my goodness. They had just married, because you were married in 84. And so they had some time to go on trips and enjoy each other very much. And but during that time, Texaco called. And so he was interviewed by Dr. Harry Dahl and Emily Stout, and they hired him to do thin sections. And eventually he became manager of the thin section and core lab. And John Coates, who worked there, had a comment for Bill. He said, Bill did rock slides for Texaco geologists. And John said, hell, I think he knew more about minerals than most of them. And he also taught John a lot about minerals. Eventually, Texaco and Chevron merged, and when that happened, Bill had to work in the drilling cement lab first. Then he moved up to the reservoir geology lab, and ended up in the yeah, he's building up his muscles there. That's kind of a posed shot, isn't it? But while he was there, he also did technical reports, co-authored technical reports, as you heard from the Bills, and he used as little of his photography at the same time. He was going to a meeting one day, and he had to get kind of dressed up, and he apparently went in the elevator to go wherever the meeting was, and it so happened that the CEO was in the elevator too. And knowing Bill's reputation for clothing, the CEO complimented him on how nice he looked. Bill's comment was, I'm the same old asshole I always was. Yeah. And Andrew Thomas worked there, of course, and he had some things to say about Bill. He said Bill was upbeat, smiling, a rebel, had a passion for rock collecting, and he and Jay drove rock collecting to a high level, while I was just an amateur in the presence of professionals. Bill was the guy for thin sections. He was one of our sages. That's quite a compliment. I love this line. He had a way of telling it like it is. And I think any of you who knew Bill knew that. Well, that's nothing. That's nothing. This is just him in the lab. How about that one? Bill just loved to dress up and do things like this. He had a fantastic sense of humor. You'll see a little more of that in a minute. Anyway, the fellows mentioned his photography skills, and here's a shot that he took of an eagle, and he submitted it to the New York Institute of Photography in 2007, and it won an award. Okay. Now, I do some pictures. I'm a lousy photographer, but looking at this picture, the detail that how do you get an eagle to sit still long enough to get a shot like that? That's just marvelous. Okay. That photograph was exhibited on Madison Avenue, and you already heard he did technical writings and ad layouts as well. And Bill won a trophy. But he didn't win it. His car won it. This is his first new car was a Saturn Aura. and he called it Gibby because he'd done a lot of research work on Gibbsite. And the car was selected as the North American Car of the Year. So the company decided to circulate the trophy among Aura owners. Okay? And Bill got the trophy and was able to keep it for 24 hours, so he had to pose with it, of course, and then he had to send it on. The only question I have is, did he go to bed with it?
Yes.
Oh, he did. Kind of figured. It sounds like Bill. Somebody mentioned that he did a little race car driving. It's not his Rockhound car. He went to school in the Bondurant driving school and learned how to drive Fords. He was an expert at race car Formula Fords, but he also took stock car training at the Charlotte Speedway, and the teachers there are well-known NASA crew chiefs and stock car drivers. So he was a very skillful driver of race cars, and I think that came through on his safety program. Now, if you're a rockhound, you know this is very normal. There's nothing wrong with this photograph. This is good old Bill. He got home. The thing about it is, though, and being a rockhound and being married to someone who doesn't like rocks particularly, Bill was lucky because he was married to Jay. And Jay not only tolerated these things, but she went right along with him, digging and collecting. And so he was a very, very lucky guy to have a companion like Jay, believe me. And again, I speak from experience. Bill would go anywhere for a rock. And this is a good example of the kind of, not risk, but the kind of adventuresome that he would experience. There's a few pictures here now that were taken by Barbara Muntown when they were out rock hunting. This is in your folder, incidentally, so you have a copy of it. What I like is the grin. Success! He found a crystal. And it's an aquamarine, not a really great aquamarine, but for him, a good find, good effort. The southern part of Arizona, and the Patagonia Mountains especially, there's a lot of little quartz pockets, and there have been a lot of quartz crystals found down there. And this is Bill digging quartz down there in the Patagonia area. And you've got this photograph too in your folder. My feeling on this is you pick up a rock when you're a collector, you look at it, you study it. If there's nothing in there worthwhile, then you put it aside. But if there's any potential that it might be a collectible specimen, you put it in your bag. And he had a companion. I love the hat. Yeah, Jay gets right down in there and digs too. And so they had great times out in the field together. My favorite picture right here. This is it. This is Jay and Bill. Bill's digging, she's guarding the rock bag, and here it is, right here. Yeah, they were a great team. I don't think he got there, but gives you an idea he would do anything, try anything for a good mineral. I love this one. I love this. You talk about wild clothes. Now, what rockhound do you know that would put on a pair of shorts and a wild shirt and go digging somewhere? Come on. Eldon, that's not your best side. This is not a very good picture, but you get the idea. No comments? No. I didn't put it in there for that. However, think what you will. They met at the San Antonio show in 1979 when Bill showed up with a girlfriend and was going through the rocksmith stock buying minerals. And the girlfriend was, of course, looking at all the jewelry, hoping to get something. And she complained later that Bill didn't buy her any jewelry. All he did was buy those damn rocks. But when he left, Jay made a comment to Jean. She said, "I've got to get to know that guy a little better." He didn't know then his goose was already cooked. So they met. Oops, I got ahead of myself here. I'm sorry. In 1983, they met at the Houston show, the American Federation show, and Bill asked Jay for a date. And they went out to a bar, a Western bar, and they danced and they drank and had a wonderful evening together. And that really started it. From then on, Bill in Houston, Jay in Arizona, they would correspond. They'd exchange letters and try and keep in touch. And when he could, Bill would leave Houston Friday night after work, fly to wherever Jay was doing a show, stay there for the weekend, and then catch the red eye back to Houston. I often wondered about Monday mornings and what kind of work he was I kind of figured. Anyway, and following all of that, well, and then when he'd get a week off, then he'd come over to the ranch in Tombstone, and they would, horseback ride, and they'd hike, and they'd, do all those things a young couple does, so trying to get to know each other. And finally, Bill popped the question in 1984, and I put this in as her answer. That was a photograph taken by Gail Spann. Excuse me. Once he asked her to marry him, they began planning, and the first thing they planned was a pre-wedding reception here in Tucson during the Tucson showtime when all their friends would be here. So at the Sheraton, they had this marvelous bash. It was a very cold night, according to Jay, but that night really warmed up. I don't know just what that meant, but she said it was a really hot night.
32 cases of champagne.
32 cases of champagne. What were we doing, floating a boat?
Oh, you betcha.
Holy mackerel, 32 cases of champagne. My God.
That's what Eldon said when he got the bill.
Well, was anyone there besides you and Bill and Eldon?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Just thought I'd check. Anyway, they honeymooned in the Pocono Mountains, which have never been the same since, incidentally. On their travels, when Bill had that time off before he went to work for Tucson, and after that, after they were married, they traveled a lot. And Jay loves seals. Those little creatures that swim around in the ocean down in Antarctica? Okay, Jay loves those. She collects those. Think about that if you ever see one. Bill saw one in Germany, only it was 4 feet long, all right? Okay, well, that's okay if you're here in the States and you get in a car and you drive home. What do you do with a 4-foot-long seal when you're going to fly home? Well, Bill went to the airport, he went up to the x-ray machine, he shoved the thing in there, and he yelled to the guy on the other side, yeah, pull it out, pull it out. And the guy did, and the seal got on the plane with him, and off they went. So that was just one fun thing they did. They also took some time, skip along here. Last year they went on a trail ride up in Canyon de Chelly. You all know where Canyon de Chelly is up north, and it's absolutely gorgeous scenery. People go up there and they take tourist Jeep rides and all this kind of stuff. And Bill and Jay did a horseback trip in there. While they were riding along, a Jeep load of tourists went by, and Bill said, I'm going to chase him, I'm going to catch up with him, and off he went. And jogging, kind of running along, riding along, he lost his stirrups. Well, knowing Bill, I can imagine, I know what he said. Oh my God, damn. And
Oh, shit.
yeah, oh shit. There it is, oh shit. And, but he caught up with him, surprised the hell out of the tourists, and had a good time. Excuse me. While Bill was working, oh, there's Cowboy Bill. While Bill was working in Texaco, he was sent on a trip to Moscow, which we'll talk about in just a minute. This is another trip that they took to New Zealand, and they used a helicopter to get up on the glaciers so they could go hiking and have some fun up there and probably threw some snowballs at each other. They found a cave, a nice cave. So Bill got in there, and who took the picture? You?
No, our tour guide. I didn't go in there.
You didn't have the nerve. Huh? Okay, well, adventuresome Bill got in the cave, and they got this picture of him. Okay. This is a Gale Spawn shot of Bill at the show last year, and we already heard what a great photographer he is. Look at the scenery here. Isn't that wonderful? Who took that shot?
Gentleman named Corey, and I can't remember his last name.
Oh.
From Alaska.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Professional
Beautiful.
photographer.
You can imagine what Bill got, being an expert. Lima, Peru was never the same. after they were there. Just another place they went. Now, when Bill was sent to Moscow by the company, he was with a fellow named Mike Grammer, and Bill was in charge of the satellite phone. Now, this is some years ago. Now, you remember what those old satellite phones were like? They kind of look like a walkie-talkie. They're not like these things you stick in your shirt pocket today. Not only that, but they were a little on the pricey side. When they first came out, they were charging $5 a minute to use those things. I don't know what it was when Bill was in Moscow, but it wasn't cheap. Well, he and Bill and Mike were walking back to their hotel one night, and they decided it was wintertime. They decided, well, let's walk across the river. So they got on the ice and they walked across the river. Well, halfway across, Bill gets the brilliant idea, I'm going to call Jay. So he gets on the satellite phone, calls Jay, and says, guess where I am? You know, well, she didn't guess, but anyway. And he did that every night they were there. He would call Jay, and they would visit, and, you know, a young couple talks, my God, it goes on forever. And when he got back, he turned in the cell phone, and I think that's the year that Texaco's dividends fell off a bit. I'm not sure, but I suspect so. Okay? I just threw this one in because that's Bill and Jay. That's the kids. I mean, they'll never grow up. I mean, it's just, you know, wonderful. Now, of course, you could ask the question, where is Bill supposed to be on that, but maybe not. They love the outdoors. Bill went hiking up in the Red Rock country with Jay. They just had a marvelous time all the time. And he was a man who just loved the outdoor, enjoyed it very much, and enjoyed life to the fullest, like most of us should. Now, I couldn't caption this photograph. I'm sorry. I was just kind of stuck. What do you think Bill would say? Want to guess? I won't. But that's Bill. Pardon?
Nice hair.
Nice hair, yeah, right, yeah. In 2008, some property next to Gene and Eldon came up for sale, so Bill and Jay bought it. They were still in Houston, still working, but they bought the house. Bill designed it. He designed it so that the collecting room was just set up right for his collections, and he made sure the lighting was good. He designed some of the lighting, and they would work on the house whenever they had time to get over here, and it became their vacation home until Bill retired. And so he worked inside and out, obviously in the summertime, and and got the house ready. And they moved in when he retired. Now this next group of little pictures I want to explain. Some of you old timers remember the auctions we used to have at the show on a Saturday night. Wild times. I mean, those were just phenomenal. They were raising money for the mineralogical record, which was really just getting going. And the dealers would donate specimens, and collectors would donate specimens and books and different things. And then the crowd would get going. You'd get dealers bidding against dealers. You'd get husbands bidding against wives. You'd get dealers bidding against themselves, for God's sakes. It was a wild time. Everyone would leave the show and then go to dinner and then come back. And here's Bill and Jay. They came back after dinner, and you can see they came back slightly fortified. Bill always had to add a little something. He just couldn't be there. He had to, show his little bit of sense of humor. I love the earrings here. And the beauty of it is Jay tolerated this stuff. If I had done this in front of my wife, she'd have disowned me. So they made a great couple. When they wanted to bid, they made damn sure the auctioneer saw their hand. Okay? In fact, they started a trend. You'll see that in just a minute. The only problem with this is that if Bill didn't get the specimen he bid on, he would show his displeasure. Okay? And the trend that they started finally spilled over onto Doc Hansen, the auctioneer, and his help. Does anybody recognize that little kid in the back?
Marcus.
Yeah, that's good old Marcus. When he was, well, I won't say it.
Yeah, no.
When Bill and Jay were on a cruise ship, the cruise ship had a contest, a costume contest. And so Jay decided that they were going to enter. And she thought, well, the best thing I can do is to go as a lizard trainer and dress Bill as a lizard using green crepe paper. Now, have you ever worked with any kind of crepe paper when it gets wet? It leaks, okay? Think about that. Anyway, when they got to the contest, Bill dropped down on all fours, crawled across the dance floor to where the judge was, put his head in the judge's lap and smiled that beautiful smile of his, hoping he would get first prize. He didn't. They got third prize. The real prize was when Bill got rid of the costume and he was green for the rest of the trip. So, I'm going to leave you with just this thought. This is a shot that Bill took of himself. We all have great memories of Bill. And like a shadow, those memories will always be with us. Thank you. What do we do now? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Brenda is going to give us a close. Is this on? Yeah, a closing prayer. Let's get Bill up there again. There we go. There you are.
I am just amazed at all the pictures and especially the love that was there. So what I'm going to do, I had a different song in mind, but I'm going to sing this song out on our nation. We have our sacred mountains. We have Wawagior, Wabakibri, and then we have another one which is less known, which is Giotoak, which is Bird and Basket Mountain. Babakibri is it's the male, and Giotoak or Bird and Basket is the female. And the song I'm going to share with you is a love song. And so I'm going to dedicate it to Jay and her husband, and just from what has been shared, the relationship that they had and the love that they had, and that will carry on. And so I'm going to sing that for you. And I'm not going to use the mic.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'll do the closing blessing. And it talks about the man walking at the bottom of the mountain and looking to the west and seeing his love and seeing how beautiful she is as she's walking in the west along the mountains. Papa Shamaroi Marhim Kunya Kamanyai Nahim Akiha Tanahan Amudani Gatakyo Kakai Wawanima Sapamasak Tanawan Amakoi Nakinawawa Himho Wai Wakewaleka Siaringatakyo Kakai Wawanim Kunyama Papa Shomaroi Marim Kunya Kamanyai Nahim Akiha Tanawan Amutini Gatakyo Kakai Wawanima Sapamasaktanawa Kamakoina Ginawawanima Kunya Kamanyai Nahima Kihatanawan Amutini Gatakyo Kakai Wawanima Sapamasaktanawa ama koino keno wawanim ho konya kamanya na hima ki hatanawan am hojani katakyo kakai wawane hima sapama saktanawan ama koino keno wawanim ho.
When Brenda finishes the prayer, may I ask you to remain seated while the Smith family exits, and then we'll all meet over at the museum.
Creator, we are so blessed this evening. We are humbled as we come before you once again to thank you for the blessings that you have provided to each and every one of us, that you have given to us to enjoy. And as we look to the close of this day, we ask that you bless each and every one that is here. We ask that you go with each and every one. You know their hearts. And we ask that you be with them. And as they go from this day forward, that the memories that they have will always be there. Because you have provided so much for us that we can't begin to describe the awesomeness that comes from knowing that you care about us and that you give all these things to us freely for us to enjoy. So we thank you. We give the praise and the glory back to you, Creator, for what you do for us. And we especially pray for the family that have lost their loved ones. But also we have heard so much this evening that can be carried in the hearts. And so we thank you, Creator. And we thank you for giving us rest tonight. And as food will be shared, fellowship, memories, we ask that you bless that also and be with everyone. And we thank you for the life that you have given. That once again, we know that you have blessed us. And so, Creator, we leave the rest of this day and this night in your hands and give it back to you to do what you know needs to be done. Give us rest and peace. So thank you, Creator. Amen.
And thank you, Brenda. Appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Please give the Smiths a chance to go over to the museum. We'll have refreshments over there. You're all welcome to be there.
Let me hold on Brenda, come with us to this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Very, very well done.
Thank you. We got our ticket in the parking,
Okay.
and I guess they asked if somebody can
Yeah.
do whatever with it.
Yeah, you're supposed to pay when you get out of the parking lot, and I have no idea what it's going to be. Let me give you some money, and then we'll,
Okay.
I'll just tell Jay.